so big and strong. He goes to work each day, he stays all day long. He comes home each night looking tired and beat. He sits down at the dinner table and has a bite to eat. Never a frown, always a smile. When he says to me, how's my child? I said that I've been studying hard all day in school, trying very hard to understand the golden rule. I think I'll color this man father. Color him love. I think I'll color him love. Color him love. Said I'm gonna color him father.
And this is the Wisdom Table coming to you from Grand Houses in Harlem, USA. I'm Brother Leroy. Thankful to the Most High for blessing us with the opportunity to be with you and you to be with us as we journey into an area of information that is very, very important. Relates to family, which is the mainstay of any community. Our guests today are a grandmother and a son in pursuit of a grandchild. But let's first do this. This program, The Wisdom Table, does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of this NYCHA development, that is Grand Houses in Harlem, USA. Neither do the views expressed here reflect on the resident council of the Grand Houses. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program who are live in living color in studio at times and definitely by Zoom. And that is the case today. The platform is Zoom, and we're very happy to have with us a family that has a story to tell that affects many Black men. Story takes place in Georgia and in Michigan and in New York, but it affects many Black men in quest of custody for a child. And our guest, or the grandmother, I'll introduce the lady first, and that is Miss K. Marie Presley. She's the grandmother of Amari, and the father, who is here present, Krishna Pendergrass. And Amari is a young warrior of ours. That is the generation that he is born of are exceedingly bright. They are our future, and none are to be discarded or put by the wayside. And if we can do anything in this program today, take notes and see how you can help at the end of the program. Brother Krishna and Sister K. Marie Presley, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table. Okay, I'm not hearing. They might be responding. See.
Can you hear us?
Ah, okay,
Okay,
Brother
there you
Leroy.
go.
Brother
Sorry
Leroy,
about that.
untechno, call Brother Leroy, untechno Leroy. But anyway, okay. Um,
Thank you for having us, Brother Leroy.
oh, God bless us with the opportunity that's made possible by the engineering of some industrious brothers and sisters who make this independent radio station in Harlem a reality. And we'll talk about them later on. The issue, Brother Krishna, is your son, Amari.
Yes.
And let's start with the most recent situation and then let our audience know how it got to the most recent situation. You had been in pursuit of finding your child for a number of years, and just start at that point at which you eventually found your child and you had him in your custody, and then what happened? You tell us that story.
Yes. Thank you for having me first and foremost. And it's an honor to be here on this platform to, share my story and spread, you know, this five-year long custody battle, almost 6 years now custody battle, and this unfair treatment of my severely abused and traumatized 5-year-old son, Amari Prendergast. Um, well, to catch people up to speed, pretty much Amari's 5 years old. He's going to be 6 in January. He's been severely abused and traumatized ever since the day he was born. Um, the abuser is his biological mother, unfortunately, and she has a long history of domestic violence, family violence. She's coming from a background that I didn't know of domestic abuse. And I had a child with this individual, and I did not know, and I did not, do my facts checking, background checking, and I come to realize, and she, it was also I confessed that she is coming from also a long line of mental illness. So pretty much to make a long story short, Amari was parentally kidnapped in August of 2018 for 559 days. Um, the United States Marshals had to get involved. My son was entered onto the NCI C list as a missing and abused child, and there was also an interstate felony warrant that was issued for the abuser, which was in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. The United States Marshals and the FBI caught up with the abuser on December 26th of 2019. And me and my mother, we went to Michigan to get my son, who we didn't see for over 559 days. Um, when we got him back, it was not the same child that I knew. It was not the same child that I was accustomed to caring for. And he was very violent. He was he had numerous welts on his back, like he was being abused. Um, Many marks on his skin, and his behavior was the behavior of an abuse victim. Violent to himself, very angry. Um, his patterns. He was malnourished. He was very skinny. He had, you know, his mind, his mental state was that of a 2-year-old.
Mm.
He wasn't potty trained. He was still in
Mm.
Pampers.
Wow.
You know, yeah, all the signs of abuse. He wouldn't sleep on a bed. He
Mm.
would sleep on the floor and would want to hide under the bed or hide in closets. And the rage within him was, and his strength was, that of someone who was used to fighting for his life. you know and it's just hard to bear. So we had Amari for since December 26th of 2019, and we had him for about roughly 10 months, and we were able to bring him to a couple of specialists, a couple of doctors, and every day was a task, because dealing with a severely abused and traumatized child, you know with developmental delay due to the abuse and the trauma, it was severely hard, not only on myself but on him, and also my mother and my family. um Amari, we got him tested for genetics to see. They were claiming that he had autism, and test came back negative. His genetic chromosomal makeup was negative. Everything was regular. He was born a regular child. There was nothing wrong with him. It was the abuse and the neglect and the isolation that delayed him severely and damaged him. And you know to make a long story short, we were going for full custody in 2020. As you know, COVID came in and everything was shut down, including the courts. So um, the abuser, she was arrested in Michigan on December 26th, and she was extradited back to Georgia, where she spent 4 months in the Rockdale County jail. She was released in April on a $30,000 bond, only due to the COVID infection rate that infested the jail. So she was out on bond. Um, we applied for as soon as the courts opened up. My attorney, he went ahead and he put in for a full permanent custody hearing. I already received temporary permanent custody in 2019 in July because Amari was gone for over 559 days, and the original custody was established in Georgia. Amari was born in Georgia, so I was granted full temporary custody in July and of 2019, and pretty much, you know, the abuser refused to turn Amari over, even with a court order. So she was held in contempt of court, and that's how the warrant was issued, and that's how the United States Marshals got in contact with her, and they caught up with her. So to make a long story short, we had Amari from October 26th all the way up until um, October the 19th, when my mother was forced to turn Amari back over to his abuser. Now, the abuser has a lawyer who was representing her in her criminal case against the state for the interstate kidnapping and interference with custody. She used to be an assistant. She used to be a district attorney of Rockdale County, so she's well affiliated. And they went. She applied for a motion in a county that was next door to Rockdale County, where no one lives in. I do not live there, and she does not live there. And they served me by mail. And when my attorney showed up for court to dismiss the case and pretty much explain to the judge that, my client has no business in this court, this is the wrong jurisdiction. The judge turned around and turned it into a trial, and he pretty much ordered that the child be turned over immediately, stripping me of all of my parental rights. And she was still on bond. She was still a prisoner of the state. So it was done so quick, and it was done in a manner to whereas it's a backdoor deal. It was done so quick, and the attorney tried to argue the fact that no one lives here in this county. My client doesn't live here. Furthermore, the custody was established in Rockdale County, not Newton County. And there's a law wherever custody is established, it can only be modified in the county where custody was established. So it was definitely a backdoor deal by her attorney, who used to be a district attorney, and now she was representing her in the criminal case. So she used her to represent her in her custody case. So she made a backdoor deal, and they pretty much used my son as a pawn in order to get her off of her criminal charges in Rockdale County. So she, my son was turned over on November the on October the 19th, and that was a Monday. And by October the 23rd, which was the Thursday, the district attorney called me from Rockdale and said that we have to drop all the charges after, my son being missing for 559 days, after us having to go through the long court process and the very financially burdening court fees and filing fees and paying attorneys of having to file motions, to prove to them that, she was unfit and that the child needs to be turned over to me immediately, and then had to go back and file for a contempt motion to state that the child still hasn't been returned to the father. There needs to be a warrant issued, and then have to wait all the way until December when the FBI and the U.S. Marshals finally decide to move in. So we did all the right steps, and we followed the law as to where it was written, and no one gave us any shortcuts. No one told us what we could do to speed it up. We were pretty much just at the mercy of the system. We paid what we were supposed to pay. We paid court fees, we paid lawyers, and we waited. And it wasn't like we were waiting to get back a vehicle, or we were waiting to get back an object or something that was stolen. This was a human being, a child who you know was stripped from my entire family and kidnapped and taken and was isolated and abused and left in the back of cars and beaten and burned. you know so to make a long story short, we were forced to turn over Amari on on October the 19th, and since then we haven't seen Amari. We don't know where Amari is. um on November the 16th, we went back to court because they held a contempt hearing where the judge held me in contempt. He wanted to jail me for 20 days. But he held me in contempt, and he he continued to suspend all of my visitation rights. I have no visitation rights whatsoever. And he's also pushing for me to get a psychological evaluation by a doctor that he referred. So,
I want to jump in here. How you doing, Mr. Baller?
Yeah, excellent. Yes, ma'am. Go
All right.
ahead.
I want to jump in. My son pretty much explained the legal part, but I want to just explain the historical part of what our people have gone through since they brought us to this country. You know, this kind of slave mentality where they break up our families. We have no business in courts. We have no business having people from other races that don't know our culture, our history, our children, and our families come in and dictate to us how we run our families. That is the first thing. But they have done it. They came here, they brought us up on ships, and they put us on the auction blocks, and once our children get grown, they sell them off. It's the same thing. They pit the woman against the man. The man is only like a mandingo slave where he impregnates 10 to 15 women on the plantation, and they take away every kind of decency and every kind of right that we ever had as a people. And what we are looking at today is modern day slavery. The same thing in the courts. We they can't make us pick cotton. There's no more cotton to pick. So the new cotton picking place is the prison system, where they not just incarcerate adults, but they incarcerate our children. They
Hmm.
incarcerate them by, having mothers or fathers who abuse their children, you know, uh, having them in places where they practice the actions of the oppressor, because for a mother or a father to beat a child until they are developmentally delayed, that is what the oppressor used to do. They used to whip us. Okay, they used to beat us. So I can understand where that's coming from. But what I don't understand in this 21st century, where when we are now free men and women supposedly, where we pay taxes and we work, we vote, how is it that we don't have a say legally in where our children or our lives are directed, when there is something that's wrong? There clearly is a lot of wrong things that is going on. And one of those wrong things, being a woman myself and a woman of faith that I have seen is, and having two sons, is the problems in this country where black men, especially in particular, they're either shot down, shot in the back. incarcerated, or denied the right to be a father, a loving father. That is, I'm not saying that, all men or all women are, it's not, a gender thing. It is who
Hmm.
has the best interest of the child. That's what the terminology that the court used. But it was
Okay.
not in the best interest of the child to turn the child over to the abuser. And I like to give the analogy of a rape victim. If you have someone who got raped and they're traumatized, and what do you do? What does the system do? They look to, hospitalize that person and put them in a safe haven way away from the abuser. We have collected over almost 6 years of evidence of abuse, burning, and beating, and we have shown it to the courts. And what do? Even defects. When you call defects, they go back to the abuser and tell the abuser that she's been reported. So there's no confidentiality there. And what that abuser does is abuse that person more. This case is my grandson. Every time he's returned, and we notify the courts, we notify defects. They tell her exactly. They give her all the information. And what does she do? She takes it out on the child. So each time that the child came around, and when we got to saw him, he was so re-traumatized. And I was crying a while ago, and my son was saying that he was so strong, because for his age, he's really very strong. And I didn't even realize that until my son said that he's really fighting for his life. When you are a child and the only environment that you have is not safe, you fight in any which way you can. So he does know how to, he's got that strength, and I wonder where he got it from. And I think if Amari wasn't strong, he would have been dead long ago. Traumatically abused, lots of burns over his body, and wells and everything that you could think of, and still in Pampers. And the court looks
Sis-
at this, and they want to incarcerate the only person that ever tried to protect the child, which is the
Sister
father.
Presley,
Yes.
what did you and your son experience on the day that you had to turn Amari over to the mother?
Okay. It was a George Floyd moment. Let me say that. It was a George Floyd moment, because I did not take Amari to court because he's so fearful of being around people. He's more of a sheltered child. We had to do that to protect his emotions, because he's very sensitive. He has been enrolled in 15 daycares. She enrolled him in 15, not one, not two, not 10, 15 daycares. This is what she tried to do. Like, she tried to hide him. So we located the 15 daycares from he has been born. Now, I don't know how many schools you have been to during your lifetime between elementary, middle, and high, but I have not been to no 15 schools. But
Hmm.
this is what she did in order to hide him. So when I didn't take him to court that day, because I knew he would be traumatized, because he's been moved around so much. He's been moved around and shuttled here, left in abandoned building, chained up, tied up. So I left him with a church sister of mine, a beautiful sister. She's more of an aunt. And he was playing with his little blanket. So when I went into the court, the judge ordered that I was to be arrested if I had not brought the child in 30 minutes. And I had to call her, and she brought the child in. And when my grandson saw me, he ran towards me. He had his little blue blanket, because it was a warm day, but he's still a child inside. He likes blanket. I don't care if it's hot or it's cold. He's just to tell you the
Hmm.
nature of how, under the he's still playing with blankets. He loves his
Hmm.
blanket. He doesn't care if it's hot or cold. And he came towards me with his little blanket and his little toys in his hands, and he hugged me. I had a skirt on, and he hugged me, and grandma, grandma. He was so glad to see me. And then the abuser spoke, and he looked past me and behind me, and he saw his abuser. And what did he do? He let go of my skirt, and he was running out the courtroom. He started to scream on the top of his voice, and he let go of my skirt and he started to run. So I said, Amari, no, come on. And I kind of got to him, and he pulled on my skirt and he was screaming, no, no. The police officers ordered me to let him go, but he was holding on to me more than I was holding on to him. And the more the abuser came to him, the more he screamed, and he just fell out on the ground. They grabbed him, they tried to grab him, and he crawled out of the courtroom. He crawled on his belly with the blanket and he would not get up. He had three courtroom officers, three sheriff deputies that held him down. One held his head to the floor, the other knelt in his back, and the other one hog tied his feet.
Mm.
And he slipped out of his clothes. His shoes came off, his clothes came off, and they did not care. They put their hands on their guns and they said to all three of us, because it was my church sister and her niece and myself, they said, "Get out the courtroom, get out the courtroom, get out this court before we shoot you and before we arrest you." And we didn't know what to do. We were so traumatized because he sounded like a wounded animal. You should see it. And if we could subpoena the tape, I'm sure anybody seen it would think this was a George Floyd moment, because it was. A 5-year-old child with three grown men and stripping him off all his clothes. He crawled out of his clothes. That's how much. And then they ordered us in the law library because we were totally confused. They said, "Get in the law library." We ran in the law library and they held him down for a good 15 minutes in there. And he looked up off the floor and he saw us at the end of the corridor and he started to crawl on his belly. On his belly. He is so strong. I couldn't believe it. Crawl. What they did, they couldn't detain him. They couldn't give him to the abuser. And what did the abuser do? She didn't even say, "Stop, let him get a moment." You know how mothers do? Let him just relax for a moment. Don't. She said nothing. She was stone cold, just standing over him while they abused her child. And that should tell anybody the level of relationship that that person has with that child. What they did next, they got into the law library and they told us to get out the library. And we ran down the stairs. They said they're going to arrest us. Again, they threatened us. We ran down the stairs because the elevator couldn't start, quick enough. When we got in the car, which was already parked in the parking lot, we were crying. We were so traumatized. I was devastated. And we were in there for a good 10 minutes. Then we heard this noise. And we turned around in the car. We are sitting in the car. We're not going because we are all crying. Three women. We know the pain of bringing children here. We know when our children cry like that, what they're crying out for. And he kept saying, "Grandma, grandma, don't leave me, grandma." And we turned around and there they had him. They had dragged him from the courtroom outside onto the pavement. And as I said, they had to sit on top of him. One sat on his back, kneeling
Mm.
his back. The other one had his face down on the pavement, and the other one tied his legs. And the abuser opened the car door and they threw him inside. And they
Mm.
told us, "Get out the parking lot. They're going to arrest us." That's the third time that we were threatened with hands on their guns.
Mm.
Let me tell you something, Brother Bala. They talk about police brutality. And that was police. That was my first time. I've seen it in the news. I've watched them, but this is my first time. And this was a 5-year-old. It took three grown men to get that child out that courtroom, and he was kicking and screaming in that car. When the car was moving on, she drove off. The whole car was shaking.
GHCR.NYC,
So,
Grant Houses Community Radio, home of the Community News Service, and the soul of the Upper West Side.
And this is W. I started to give you the wrong place. I've been on so many radio stations. This is GHCR.NYC, GHCR.NYC, Grand Houses Community Radio, coming to you from 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue in Harlem, USA. Our guest in studio is Sister K. Marie Presley. She's the grandmother of Amari and her son, Krishna Pendergast. He is the father of Amari, and we're talking about In Search of Amari, retaining parental rights on the part of the father. And we're hearing what has happened in this particular case in a court in Georgia. Um, did you have any witnesses outside of your family? Any others? I know you have spoken in previous situations about private detectives and
yes,
also child advocates. Who else? Were there any of
yes.
these people in the court at the same time?
On the 19th, there were no one there at the time, and that's the
Oh,
mistake
wait a
he
minute.
made. On the 19th, there was no one, but on when we went back in November the 16th, we had a videographer, and he was from a child advocates group. And I guess they have to file a paper into the courts to be able to film. Now,
Right.
if we did not have that videographer, that judge would have locked up my son because in his courtroom, it is like a theatrical production. They know what they're going to do. I saw 10 men in 2018 got locked up just for being men, and they were all black men. 10. I could not believe it. So he stages this so-called court. He is the judge, the juror, everything, and he stages the whole thing. It's all cooked up. Nothing in there is about looking at the evidence. He disregarded the evidence of the private detectives. We had two private detectives that we paid, one in Georgia and one in Michigan. The one in Georgia caught her leaving the child in the car. She has been doing it for 14 months. No, I didn't say 4 months. I said 14 months. She goes to work 3 to 4 days a week. And that's how long she's been leaving him. She went on the stand when she realized, she didn't realize we had a private detective. And when they rolled the tape and they rolled the pictures, she had to admit, because that was her. That was her. There was my grandson on the back seat of the car. And she told that same judge, this very same judge that wants to arrest my son and stripped him of his rights. She said, yes, I did that, but that because I had nowhere else to leave him. Okay, so here it is. She admits to this very same judge, who I know is racist and prejudiced and wants to deny every father of their rights. She admits on the stand, and we have the transcript and the page, that I did this. And instead of stripping her of her rights, he turns around and strips the father who's trying to protect the child. We have the other detective in Michigan who, 7 days after his ruling of giving her back the child, found Amari in a parking lot in 25 degrees in Michigan while she walks to work. It made the news. It made national news. And the judge in Rockdale County saw that and granted, that's how my son granted, got temporary custody. And now here comes a judge without no jurisdiction at all that comes and strips him of his right and tries to jail him. We had National Action Network President Mr. McGee in the courthouse this last time. I think that made a difference. I believe that when you go to court, you have to have all kind of witnesses in there. You have to have all kind of eyes watching because they will take you and they will take our people. And for just because they think they have the authority and the power, they will incarcerate you and give you sentences beyond sentences. He wanted to give my son 20 days in jail. He has no police record. He has no record of ever abusing the child. And here we have a stack of evidence that he said, I don't want to see it. The daycare did not report. He came in as an abused child. The daycare director said they had to pray over him every
Oh,
morning because they did not know if Amari would come back alive the next day. And they put neosporin on his burns. Now, that was a mandatory reporting center that could have saved his life. There are so many checkpoints and so many red lights that this abusive person ran. And nobody got up and say, hey, this child is in danger. So we got up and we did our due diligence because every time I got my grandson, it was a new burn and it was a new welt and it was a new mark and he kept going being more violent and more angry.
damn.
Nobody from DFACS to the police, and I wonder about all the children in this country that have to sleep in beds that they're being abused. And my grandson has also been sexually molested. I
Yeah.
don't speak about that a lot because it's very disturbing. But his abuser has molested him, his own mother. And the people that she associates with have molested my grandson. So you wonder what they want to turn out is how is he going to even live and to become a teenager? Now we know why sometimes our society is full of black angry men and black angry women because when you have somebody or something that tries to help them, they don't want to see that. They want to see us damaged, destroyed, and having no use to society and then become incarcerated again because that's a straight line to the prison. So, we're calling on everybody to help us because Amari needs to be freed. This father now is looking at serving time if we don't get this in the media, because this is not the final court date. He didn't get to do his diligence of arresting my son because National Action President, as I said, President was National Action Network President, Mr. McGee. What was his first name?
Ed McGee.
Mr. Ed McGee was there, and the videographer, and there was another witness in the court, and I was in the court. So he kept looking at the videographer. The judge kept looking and kept looking. He knew he couldn't just lock him up for no reason. He said, I have to
Okay,
be, that's what he said.
I
But
want you to go back. I want you to go back
yes,
to the 10 men you saw ahead of your case coming before this judge, so-called judge. And you're talking about a judge in what county in Georgia?
Newton
What
County,
count?
Georgia. Is a Newton County,
Newton.
but he has a history. We had to go and do our research. And we researched that he has done this to over 300 families. You have 300 cases where he has returned abused children back to their abuser. There has been protests. There has been write up in the newspaper about this judge who takes pleasure in taking abused children and returning them there to their abusers. So what we are unearthing here is not just the case of Amari. We went in for custody, but we bucked upon criminality, corruption, and cover up. And we busted it loose with the help of God, and he doesn't like it. We did a demonstration outside of the courtroom. It was just a small group of us, but we had to do something. I could not come away and not just, let them know this is wrong. You know, her attorney brought it up in court. Oh, they demonstrated. I was about to say they're demonstrating in front of the White House. It's called freedom of speech. So
Mm.
he's pissed off because we demonstrated. Now, I believe that we need to come out in numbers. I believe that this case is going to be a landmark case for others to come out in front, because it has affected not just us, but a lot of men. We've been talking to fathers' rights group and father advocates. You have a lot of men. They said, all we do, we pay our child support, but we don't see our kids. We have TPOs. Those 10 men that he locked up in that courtroom on October the 1st, 2018, they all got TPOs. Pay your
No, no,
child
no.
support,
What is that? What is that?
A,
CPOs,
a TP.
temporary protective order.
TPOs.
Yeah, so he has put that on my son. My son has a protective order against him. And that's what he does. That's the pattern of behavior. That's his pattern of behavior. He arrests the men to keep them away, because you see, a child needs both parents and they need their family. Okay? They need both parents. I'm not here to ostracize the mother, but it is shown that she has problems. And instead of allowing the father to have the child and she has visitation, he has turned it around where he has
Mhm.
stripped him of all of his rights. He has no rights. He cannot see. He said, I am suspending all your visitations. He told him that
And this is the county
yes,
where he has no
he has no
jurisdiction.
jurisdiction.
Okay,
Nobody
now
lives in that county. So it needs national attention, because he will not let the case go. He's trying to punish the father like he punished all those 10 men that I saw. I witnessed it with my eyes. All 10 men went to jail. Every man that came into that courtroom. And he deliberately set our case for the last case. Our case was the last case. He always leaves it for last. The last time when we got out of court, it was 6 o'clock. 6 p.m. in the evening, because Amari was crying so violently and because of the tie down and the hold down. We do not ever we could be second on the docket. He always put the case last and make sure that the courtroom is empty. And when I gave over Amari, there was like 10 sheriff deputies in there. I knew they were going to arrest my son. That's why I went instead of my son. I went instead of my son because I said, you know what? I couldn't stand to see my son locked up, because he had never been locked up in his life. I said, lock me up then. Put me, I can stand it. I've been out here in this fight. I'll go to jail. I'll go and sit in that prison. I'm not eating your food. I'm not drinking your poison. I am used to fasting. I don't have to eat for days. But you're not going to incarcerate my child. You're not going to do it. And I made up in my mind. I said to my son, you are not going, because I knew they were going to arrest him. There were so many sheriff deputies that day waiting in that court. But Amari took the fall. Amari took the fall. That's what happened. Instead of incarcerating my son, they incarcerated my grandson to a life of hell. And I don't know where he is. We don't have never seen him since the 19th. Nobody even off a phone call. The punishment for being a black man in America and being a father is to be stripped of your rights and have some Ku Klux Klan judge decide what to do with your child. And that's
Tell me
all it
this.
is.
Hold on a second, Sister Presley, Brother Krishna. In terms of the research that you have done on this judge, share with us, were there articles? Your mom said there are articles written in protest of, not in
Yeah.
protest, but articles reflecting. Okay, you have copies of these articles, downloaded, whatever
Uh,
that.
yes, yes, yes. If you, I mean, first off, we started off just Googling his name,
Mhm,
Eugene Benton,
mhm.
Judge Eugene M. Benton, and Eugene, Eugene, space. You just put Benton, Benton, and it's gonna come up with protests. You know, you can put in protest. There was another um, Caucasian group that was protesting him when he was a judge in the neighboring county, Walton County. See, Georgia's made up of counties, and these counties neighbor each other. So this Newton County is a neighbor to Rockdale County, which is the county that I reside in. And Newton County is also a neighboring. On the other side of Newton County, there's also the neighboring Walton County. So
A small town.
they're small towns. They're very small towns. I'd be surprised if the population isn't more than, if not 3,000. Maybe 3,000 to maybe 5,000, if that. Um, the court system and the police force out there, they all work together.
A family. Family court means that the family is the judge, is family to the attorney, to the police officer. They're all uncles and aunts.
Oh
That's what family
man,
court is. Is that for
this
us?
is this is like it's not like, it's the same thing that the brother Aubrey that they assassinated, they hunted down, and that was Georgia also. The brother
Yes,
who was
Yep.
running through,
yes,
he was
Small town.
jogging,
yes. The
and
guy did, yeah, yeah. He was just
yeah,
jogging in his neighborhood.
everybody knows one another. That's why they didn't prosecute these people. At
Exactly.
and I mean, this is well, you know, we whether it's whether it's Brother Leroy or anyone else, we go through trials so that we can grow and that we can also be in a position to help other people. And it's sad that it would happen this way, that Amari is in the condition that he's in, and you come to this independent radio station, GHCR.NYC, and the wisdom table, and we can showcase this, put this information out for others to around the country, and this is actually international, react to this. And there's got to be someone over and above the average lawyer, because you're actually working every day in order to pay the lawyer fees, etc. There's someone out there who would say, hey, let me take this bad boy on and blow it way out of the small little minuscule um, dominion that this guy has, and let people see exactly what's happening in Georgia, in the USA. Um, on that point, before we go to how people can help and assist, what did you see? What do you remember of some of the 10 cases that were held, um, that were, this guy saw the judge had before him that day before your case came up?
They
What
were
are some of the
all
things that stick out?
they were all child custody cases. They were all men, and they were nine black men, and then there was one Caucasian, but they were all jailed. and they kept going one after the other. There was, you could tell that it was already pre-set. No matter what, there were 10 different cases with 10 different arguments. Nobody knew anybody in that court. But there was one judgment for them all: prison, incarceration, and temporary protective order, and pay your child support. And I looked at men who were different ages, different sizes, different shapes. It didn't matter. What he has out for our people. And that's why they take these positions on these benches. They're not there to be fair or to be, they traded the white robes for the black robes. They traded the hood for a gavel. That's all it is. The officers too. And they were all ready to lock up these men. And most of them were even surprised because they were saying, I only owe $300. I have my checkbook. One of them said, I could just call my brother. He could pay this. No, they didn't want that. Every single man that went into that courtroom on October the 1st, 2018, was locked up. I have never seen anything like that in my life. I told my son, he was sitting right in front of me, I said, please, to slide me your debit card and to tell me what the PIN number, because I said, you're going to jail. I saw him going to jail, brother Bala. And he slid me his debit card and he told me the PIN number, and my tears started to roll down my eyes because I realized then that this was something inherently wicked in this courtroom, and that's been going on for years. And by some miracle, I don't know what happened that day, because he gave her back the child. He didn't arrest my son because, oh, I know what it was. My son had overpaid child support. That was what was happening, because he had overpaid. He had paid a lot of money up front. He never owed anything. So when he calculated it, she owed him money, but he said that's okay. So he overpaid his child support. So that's how my son didn't get locked up that day. He was able to prove that I paid and I overpaid. And that's what freed my son. So this one got away because he did what? He was a responsible father. What does that tell
That
you?
was in 2018.
That was in 2018.
October 1st.
Okay? And that's how my son did not get. But every single man that, and we were the last case, every single man that came in there was in behind bars. And the only man that left out of there free was my son. And they need to look into that day. They need to revisit, because I'm sure those men that were in there, and as I said, tall, short, dark tie, no tie, sweatsuit, heavy set, they were all going to jail. And he
All
put
right,
them all
tell
in the
it,
lockup.
share this with us, Krishna,
Yes.
that your son is turned over.
Mm.
Okay, the dates. Your son is turned over. How how is it that you are subpoenaed by way of mail? And this guy wants to go through that piece with us.
All right. Well, like I said before, we got my son on December the 26th of 2019. COVID really took effect and really came into play really heavy, like around the beginning of February, to say at beginning of March, I think I would say. And so what happened was that the courts were shut down. Everything was shut down. The courts were shut down. So we were looking to go ahead and file for full permanent custody right away. But due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, things were shutting down and the courts were not accepting any type of filings whatsoever.
Right.
So, to make a long story short, April came and they were letting the virus got so bad, the spread they had an outbreak in the jail, so they let out prisoners who weren't like on trial for like murder or like harsh crimes like that. So the abuser was one of them who they let out, and we were contacted by the district attorney's office in Rockdale, stating that we had to contact you because she's out, but you know you have a TPO against her, which the judge ordered against her. So if you do see her or anything, or If she tries to contact you,
But she did.
you know, please reach out to us. So we had to, we couldn't do anything. The courts were closed. So she was out on bond for $30,000. She had an ankle bracelet on, and
Mm.
when around August, when they scheduled a hearing on Zoom, it was a Zoom hearing, it was a status hearing where they were doing these Zoom meetings with attorneys and their clients and the judge to see the status of the cases, what was going on with these cases. So we had a status hearing in August, and we confirmed that we were going to have a full hearing custody trial on October the 12th in Rockdale County. It was agreed upon by me and my lawyer. It was agreed upon by, her and her lawyer, and it was also agreed upon the date by the Rockdale County judge in Rockdale County. The very next day, there was a filing, an e-filing that was filed with Newton County. And what
Hmm.
happened was her attorney the very next day went behind the judge's back and filed in the county, the neighboring county. So I didn't think nothing of it. My attorney didn't say nothing of it. So I get a piece of a mail, which was from a law firm. So we opened it and it said, you've been served. This is a mail proof of service, and you are subpoenaed to bring to show up in Newton County Court on October the 5th. So we had a hearing October the 12th, and I got served with something else that said I need to come to Newton County October the 5th. We shouldn't have went there. We shouldn't have gone there. We shouldn't have went there. I sent the attorney to go. He should have just written a letter, or we should have just ignored it. But out of not knowing, and also with the letter saying, you've been served, I did
Mm.
not want to not have somebody show up and then they issue a warrant for my arrest anyway,
Right.
because they can do that. If you don't show up to court and they have a proof of service that you have been served, or they served you by mail, there's different ways that you can serve somebody. So at the end of the day, she owes money, and the whole point of this thing is it was a backdoor deal. I don't live in Newton County, and the abuser doesn't live in Newton County. And with her attorney being a former district attorney of Rockdale County, who still has affiliations with both counties because they're neighboring counties, and now her being her private attorney on the criminal case, and also the attorney on the custody case, and with me being a black man, what they did was a switcheroo. She went ahead and she filed in a county where she know that she would get favor from a judge who already has a history of ostracizing black men, incarcerating fathers, and running this circus, if you may call it, within his courtroom.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, what is, let's say you had money. What would be the next step for you at this particular point in time?
Well, at this particular point in time, I would definitely we definitely need funds to push this case out into the media.
Mhm.
Well, that's what we need. We need funds to push this out into the media, because just just the way how things were done within the steps, the child is in severe danger. He's in severe danger. The abuser suffers from a long history of violence, family violence, mental history, mental health, which she's admitted to, and now they've flipped the switch. They've given her the child back, and they've ordered me to do a mental evaluation
Right.
referred by a doctor of the court. It's cooked
Right.
up. So
Right.
this whole.
So what I want to interject here, just to show you how one-sided they got a guardian of lithium in there from their court. She looks just like the attorney. Now you've got this thing that they're saying, he's got to go and get a psych. All of a sudden, he's crazy, right? She's not crazy for leaving the child. She's not crazy for burning the child. She's not crazy for taking the child for 559 days and leaving him in abandoned houses. And furthermore, he sealed the defects record for Michigan. She's on the investigation in Michigan for child abuse, where she ran to. She ran to Michigan. No, they're not saying, here's the deck stacked. She needs to take a mental evaluation. They're selling the father, and they're making sure that he goes to their psychiatrist. So what is their psychiatrist going to say? You know what? He's incompetent. He cannot, he's violent. What is it that they're going to cook up now? So everything is stacked against the father. Now, if you hear this story, and I've heard my son talking to other men on other Zooms, it's the same thing. Brother, you'll never get your child. You never, but we have to fight. You know why? Because if he was with a loving mother, we wouldn't even probably be having this conversation that much.
Right.
But the
Right.
child is in danger. You take the child and give to a prisoner who is out on bond. She was out. That is the enough violation enough to tell you that what this judge did. She didn't have any bond when she got him. She was in jail for abusing him. She was in jail for kidnapping him. She was in jail for breaking the court order. So how do you take a child? Here is a supposedly judge. So everything about it is wrong. If we can get it in the media, it will be overturned immediately. We have to go to a court of public opinion. There is no justice in no courts in this America system. Okay? I'm not gonna put my clothes on to go in there because I know what he wants to do. He ordered my son today, Friday, to pay thousands of dollars. That's what the court ordered. My son doesn't have it. He's broke. And she owes over $28,000. That's how much in attorney fees we have paid since the last couple of months, sir. We have paid over $28,000, and he's ordering my son to pay $3,500 plus 1,500 for the guardian of light, or else he's gonna
Yeah.
incarcerate him at the
Yeah.
next court.
It's
So tell me now,
this
what do we do? We need the public. If we get people who have some, like yourself, thank God for this radio show. Miss Tina is on also. She'll get to speak. If we can get people behind us, it will stop these actions. But we cannot be silent anymore because the child is going to be 6. And as he said, when you see him fight, when we had him, he fought like a grown man. You know why? He was fighting against those demons inside of his soul. It would make you cry. I cried many, many times, not
mm,
understanding why
You're
such a
tuned in
tiny
to
baby.
GHCR.NYC, Grant Houses Community Radio.
once again, this is the Wisdom Table. I'm Brother Leroy co-hosting with the Wisdom Table sisters, and we are interviewing a father and a grandmother. The young boy's name is Amari. He's 5 years old. The dad is Krishna. The mom is K. Marie Presley. And did you say that Tina,
Yes,
Tina,
Tina is on. Tina, are you there? Tina
Tina, Tina,
Alfano?
welcome, Tina, welcome to the Wisdom Table. And your observations on this case, share with us how you became involved in what you see and how it relates to other things that you've seen as a child advocate.
Is Tina on? I think she probably logged out. We'll get her back in. But
Okay.
she's been a part of helping us. We have known her for a while, and she has an organization that help abused children and battered women and domestic survivors, whether it's a male or a female. Very,
Where
very
is she
good.
based? She's based where? Here in New York?
Yeah, she's based in New York
Okay. All
and
right.
Long Island, I think, or Staten Island. But she does a lot of activism. And when she heard, because my son not only is in the medical field, he's also a music. He does music and he does humanitarian music. So we met her because we were involved in doing humanitarian work and music. So it's kind of like music and medicine, you know.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's what
healing.
my son does. And that's how we met Tina Alfano years ago. And now, we've been reunited. And I say she's just like family. And when she heard about the case, she put all her strength behind it. So she's been very proactive and she wants to see something, she wants to see some solution. As I
Well,
said,
tell us, hold on, Sister Presley, tell us
mhm.
about the involvement with the National Action Network representative down in Georgia. He is what is his title exactly?
He is the president of the Atlanta chapter of National
The
Action.
Atlanta chapter. Okay.
Yes. And we called in like it's a brother. You probably know Brother Victor Pate. I don't know if you know Brother Victor Pate. He's from
I know
here.
the name. I know the
Yes,
name.
Second Chance. He does the Second Chance program,
Okay.
uh, which is a re-entry program to help men who have been incarcerated to expunge their records and also to get reintegrated back into society. And I've done a lot of, advocacy work with Brother Pate. So he's the one that referred me. And when, as I said, Ed McGee, who is the Atlanta chapter president of National Action Network, when he heard about the case, he came on board immediately and he came to court the following day. He said, I'm going to be there. So I've got to say, thank God for him and his quick action. Like yourself, he did not hesitate. He said, how can I help? And I said, your presence means a lot. And his presence in that courtroom meant a lot because the judge kept looking over there. And I said to myself, I wish I could have had some men from the Nation of Islam, you know,
Mm,
just sitting there because we need each other. We need to
that's
be
right.
there for each other and to show up, to show them that we're not alone. We're not fighting this battle alone. And we have to fight and win for our children because we were all children at one point. We didn't just grow up and we were big. Somebody nurtured us, to this point where now we are able to give back, and I hate to say this, but if we don't find Amari soon, he's in great danger. He's in very great danger because everything that is going on that we have put out here, this girl takes out on this child.
It was a
We
dangerous.
Right.
Okay, and she has refused to give the courts her address in our presence. They know where she is, but they know my son's address. But guess what? I never heard anything like this. I never heard the one-sidedness of one parent gets to do everything and the other parent is disbarred. You see what I'm
Well,
saying?
no, we're clear on everything that you have laid out. You and Brother Krishna. It's obvious what's happening. It's one. It's a malicious way. I'm not going to give my opinion. The how do people make contact with you? How do people assist you? What are your ideas?
Okay, so my son is going to tell us about the page, the GoFundMe, and he's
Yeah, the
going to talk.
page we have a petition up on change.org, end child abuse now. That's change.org/end child abuse now. The petition is for signatures. We're trying to get over 100,000 signatures to present to, just to have in support so that we can, have as many people to say Amari needs to be free. Now, when you go on the petition site, there are also links to the GoFundMe page, which is gofundme.com/free Amari now. That's gofundme.com/free Amari now. But once you go on the petition page, change.org/end child abuse now, it has a complete layout of the details of the case. It has a complete, it also has some links in there as well to the news story article when my son was found in the backseat of a car in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Um, it has other links on there as well in regarding to when my son was rescued by the United States Marshals. We also have um, some other sites on there as well, and things that it gives people a one pager of the case and what has transpired. It's like a chronological timeline, just to say. Miss Tina Alfano has also entered the room. If she would like to, just introduce herself and share her thoughts on this case. Miss Tina?
Yes.
How you doing, Tina? Welcome to the Wisdom Table.
Can you hear?
I can't hear it. I'm not hearing you now.
Tina? Um, I don't know. She's probably trying to fix
Maybe,
her mic.
right. It's in the left-hand corner. She's done Zoom before. It's in the lower left-hand corner. The mic.
She's unmuted. I think it's her connection. Tina?
Okay.
She logged off. She
Well,
logged off. She's probably trying to
just
work it
go
out.
back. Just go back over
There she is.
change.org.
There
I'm
she is. Hi,
here.
Tina. Hi.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think it's my Wi-Fi is not so great right now, but I'll just say this. My name is Tina Alfano, and I'm a national child advocate for about 20 years. And I have to say that this is probably the worst case I've ever seen of a child abuse and everything going wrong. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And this child is in imminent danger. What about the child? I mean, I don't understand how this judge can just, you know, say whatever he wants, do whatever he wants. And the lawyer, Scott, has filed everything, and Chris has filed everything that he possibly can. And like nobody's taken an interest, including the FBI, of which I told them
Mm,
to call. I mean, how do you
mm,
say if you want, you will take the case? You're the FBI. A child has been taken away from you. Your rights have been taken away from you, yet they sound disinterested.
mm, mm.
I mean,
And you say this is the worst case that you've
this has
seen.
got to be one of the worst cases I've ever seen. I mean, how do you take the rights away from the father that is trying to get back his son to give him a normal life? You take somebody who was arrested for kidnapping her own child because she had no rights. The judge has no jurisdiction over the case, yet he's trying to do everything he can to have Chris arrested. Arrested for what? Is what we'd like to know.
Hmm, got it. All right. So thank you, Tina. We are in the last few minutes of this interview, this chapter on In Search of Amari. Christian, I'd like for you to go back over the GoFundMe positions, the change.org, so we're clear for the audience.
Yeah, the GoFundMe is gofundme.com/free Amari now. And the petition that we are asking everybody to sign, read, sign, and share is at change.org/end child abuse now. Change.org/end child abuse now. It has a pretty much a one pager telling you the happenings of the case and pretty much, filling you into the different, acts of neglect and abuse that has transpired. And there's also some links in there to the news stories of Channel 7 news, which was covered by Kim Craig, the reporter in Michigan, when they found my son on October the 8th, 7 days after the October the 1st, 2018 court hearing by this very same judge. So he was more upset that I called the news. The judge was upset. He wanted to know who called the media,
Hmm.
and it was the private detective who called the police and who called the media, and they ran the story. And that story was the story that helped me get my son in 2019. When I brought that story to a judge in Rockdale County where custody was established, the judge looked at it and said, "Oh no, this child needs to be turned over immediately, and the mother is to have no rights to the child, no visitation whatsoever." So it was that news story of my son being found in the back seat of a car in Michigan in less than 25-degree weather at 4 a.m. in the morning as she walked into work, a DaVita dialysis center, which she has been doing even since she was in Georgia, which a private investigator in Georgia testified on the stand on the same in the same courtroom on October the 1st. So October the 1st, the judge was Judge Eugene Benton was informed by a witness, which was a private investigator who did a sworn testimony in Georgia. He sees that, he sees the abuse, he sees the scars, he sees the burns. He says, "I see no evidence here that clearly there needs to be a change of custody." He gives
Yeah.
her the right to go back to Michigan. And
Hmm.
she goes to Michigan, locks off all communication again. And I had to hire another private investigator now in Michigan who caught her in less than in before the ink could dry on the order, caught her leaving my son in a vehicle at 4 a.m. in the morning as she walked into work. 25-degree weather, Michigan weather. Okay, so this Judge Eugene Benton, he was informed and he knows everything. So right now, he sealed the DFACS records, which shows that she was under investigation in Michigan in August for leaving him in an abandoned house with no running water and no electricity. Okay, no
Imagine
heat, no
that.
anything. 25-degree weather, and he sealed it. He sealed it. I can send it to you. He sealed the DFACS evidence. He has done everything to
Put him in
completely
more harm.
put
Well,
my
once,
child in more detriment and do everything to isolate him again, especially in the era of COVID where there's no daycare, there's no schools, there are no extracurricular activities. She's
Mhm.
beating the hell out of him, and I'm in fear for my child's life, and you know I refuse to turn my son over. When they told me to, because at the end of the day, she was a prisoner on bond,
Right.
and he knows that, which was another key aspect why I did not feel comfortable, nor did I want to turn my son over, because everything about this, I mean, everything about this is totally unethically wrong, and it doesn't hold any constitutional weight in regards to what's in the best interest of the child. I mean, Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could see this.
Mm.
You
Oh,
know,
Well,
it,
very
we
good.
are we are at the end. Your explanation of your situation with young Amari is very clear, and it is going to be clear to the audience outside of Harlem and in Georgia to know exactly what's going on in these courts, particularly in Georgia. And we pray that you get a quick and satisfactory resolve to this. People are not going to be happy. The so-called people in Benton, Eugene Benton, is not going to be happy, but that's the way it is with shining light on darkness. Darkness does not like light. It fights against it, but light overwhelms darkness. In this case, the information going out about Amari, your mother, you, the reality of your feelings, and Tina also joining in and sharing her insight. And it's to be continued. And to be
Thank you.
continued, we pray that it is a chapter that finds Amari back in your hands, in your custody, and leading to a better life. So, my brother, Sister Presley, Brother Krishna, Tina Alfano, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the Wisdom Table,
Thank you
sharing
for having me.
insights. Yes, ma'am. It's God's will. So we have to fight truth, fight with truth, up against falsehood until we knock its brains out. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank
Thank you.
God
you.
bless you too.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this has been the Wisdom Table coming to you from the Grand Houses in Harlem, USA. Please pass this interview off to your friends and relatives, whether they live in Georgia or not. It is very critical that this gets into the hands of lawyers, and not that they would be able to do anything, but the information is key as to what's going on in Georgia, in Georgia in this case, but there are equal situations going on in New York City. It is a war on Black fathers. It is a war on Black families. It is a war
Yes.
on Black mothers. It covers the base. So this is a wake-up call for many of us, and for me in particular. So thank you very much. I want to thank Brother Doug, the engineer, Brother Stu, the engineers, for this Wisdom Table segment. God bless you all with a wonderful and a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a man at my house, he's so big and strong. He goes to work each day and he stays all day long. He comes home each night looking tired and beat. He sits down at the dinner table and has a bite to eat. Never a frown, always a smile. When he says to me, how's my child? I said that I've been studying hard all day in school, trying very hard to understand the golden rule.